Welcome to Om Times TV, a division of Om Times Media and Broadcasting. Welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa Caprio. Do you believe in magic? What if you were told that all you had to do was get a little creative and work a magic spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Here on Postcards to the Universe, we will share manifesting, tips, postcards, creativity, abundance, and prosperity. Here is your host, Melissa Caprio.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa, creating the life you crave. How is everybody doing on this Wednesday? I hope that you're doing well. Today I have really interesting guest, Lucy Baldwin, and she's going to be talking about planetary magic and shadow alchemy, and she's going to join me. She'll come out in just a couple of minutes. To my regulars, I want to say thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining me each week. And if you're new to my show, I want to say welcome. I'm an author. You can see over my head, that's the cover of my book, Postcards to the Universe, Harness the Universe's Power and Manifest Your Dreams. And I have people create manifesting postcards. And a manifesting postcard is kind of like a mini vision board. You can also see the photos. Those are some of the postcards. I photograph them. And when the person's manifestation shows up in the reality, I like to share their stories. So they're really fun to make. They're really powerful. And I decided to make those into an oracle deck. I haven't published the oracle deck yet, but I do readings on my YouTube channel. It's on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, but YouTube, it seems I like YouTube the best because I don't get cut off, after 3 minutes, and then YouTube, I could put the whole video. So I like to do a reading. I'll shuffle the deck and I will pull a card. So I did do that earlier today. So today's message is, this is the oracle deck, the oracle card. And the message is, when you believe in magic, magical things happen, right? It's like what you believe is what comes true, right? That's what we focus on, is what shows up in our reality. So if you believe in magic, magical things will happen in your life. And I love that I'm going to have a conversation with Lucy, and we're going to talk about planetary magic. I'm learning more and more about astrology. I'm going to start taking some astrology courses this year. And I want to learn more about how I can even go even deeper. I've also started reading tarot on my YouTube channel. So I'll do a general reading, just a question that comes to me. I'll do a 3-card spread. So if you're interested, I would love for you to come over to my YouTube and check out those videos. And I do short, inspirational talking videos, like whatever's on my mind. So please check that out. All right. So I want to find out with planetary magic and shadow alchemy is. So let's bring Lucy Baldwin on. And Lucy teaches planetary magic and shadow alchemy, and she helps people actualize their dreams and find their own innate power by relating using a variety of life-changing methodologies such as existential kink and ritual. And she also serves as a priestess in mystery school, and she trains other practitioners. She offers courses and a podcast on planetary magic, teaching people how to work with the planets as allies. I love this, to reshape their identity, find harmony with reality, and manifest lives that actually reflect their desire and power, right? And you can find out all about her if you go to her website, which is listed in the description, but I'll just say it. It's www.remolinacoaching.com, and you can find out all the information about her. So welcome, Lucy. How are you doing?
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm
I love
excited.
hearing my bio. I mean, everything
I
you just
know,
read
right?
about me sounds so good.
I know. Don't you love that? Like if I'm on somebody else's show and they read my bio, I'm like, oh, wow, I've done some things, right? I love it. So what is I mean, the way that you describe planetary magic, because everybody knows what astrology is. Most people know what their sun sign is. Not that many people know anything else about their own chart and how the planets are so much more influential in our own birth charts than just our sun sign, right? How we present. So I'm just going to turn it over to you. Tell us about how you got into this work and a little bit more about what planetary magic is.
Yeah, it's interesting because I am not actually much of an astrologer. I am,
Interesting.
yeah, and I'm learning more about astrology now because
Mhm.
I came in from the planetary magic angle from the beginning. So just working with the planets as allies and sort of petitioning them or doing rituals with them to
Oh.
call in what I want to manifest things, really. I started out basically I was broke and my life was a mess, and this was what I found and, used it along with what I call shadow alchemy,
Yeah.
to kind of get my life together and then start building from there. So, I never really got super into astrology, but I've picked up a lot over the years, but the idea is that, yeah, the planets, regardless of where they are in our natal chart, they have an incredible amount of influence over us. And,
Mhm.
they also represent archetypes that we each have within us that we can kind of
Right.
call forth. So I like to think of it as, you know, we all have a masculine side and, that would be Mars, and a feminine
Mhm.
side, which would be Venus. And we have this sort of expansive side that would be Jupiter. We have
Jupiter.
a more sort of like playful trickster side, that would be Mercury, and so we can call forth those archetypes
Mm.
within us to, yeah, get what we want really to manifest.
That's interesting that you did it from that perspective. So what was the first planet you connected with?
So the first planet that I attempted to work with was Jupiter because Jupiter really is the go-to for wealth, like long-term building
Yeah,
wealth.
expansion and it expands whatever, yeah, wherever it is. Mhm.
Exactly, but then I didn't actually have a lot of luck with Jupiter at first,
Mhm.
but I didn't give up. I got into Saturn because people were talking about how you shouldn't work with Saturn because Saturn already rules over our reality. So they were like, "You don't
Right.
need any more Saturn. Everything is so Saturnian. Just don't." And I was
Yeah.
like, "But I suck at the real world. So maybe that's what
I
I
need to
need."
talk a little bit with Saturn and figure out, right. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Saturn calls us to task, right? It is the work we have to follow the rule. There are certain, so even in magic and in mystical studies, there are rules that you have to follow, meaning there's nature's rules. You can't go outside of those rules. And that's very much Saturn, right? There's no shortcuts.
Exactly. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Saturn kind of makes the rules and says, as long as you do it within, because this is real magic, right? It's not
Right.
fantasy magic. It's
Right.
actual real magic. And Saturn says you can't break the laws of physics.
Right.
Okay. But there's still a lot available to us within what is physically possible, right? And so, somebody I was just actually on a call about this Saturn program that I'm teaching, and somebody was saying it's like dissolve it working with Saturn is like dissolving all the our sort of made up limitations to discover
Mhm.
that our true limitations are so much vaster than we ever would have imagined. And
Right.
so in that sense, Saturn can actually be very expansive, even though it is limitation in a sense and is often associated with limitation.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's really, yeah, sorry,
No, I
sorry.
was
It's really
gonna
about
say,
truth.
yeah, it's about truth. No, that's so great that you said that. Yeah, and like Pluto is very much about transformation, right? Like what we're transforming something is transforming. But I've never. You're the first person I've followed astrologers who talk about the planets and the archetype of the planets, but I've never met anybody who came in the way that you're coming in, doing it, which I find really, really interesting. And just for curiosity, and everybody would probably want to know, what is your sun sign? What sign are you?
My sun sign is Leo. I have a big Leo stellium.
Okay. Okay. So you're, and then what's your moon sign?
Leo.
Mine is Leo also, and you're not a Leo rising. You're not a triple, are you?
No, no, I'm bearable because I have an Aquarius rising, so that
Okay.
balances me out. Yeah.
Okay. That balances you out. Yeah. Yeah. I am a Gemini sun, but a Leo moon and a Leo rising. So yeah, the
Mm.
Gemini, that's balanced. So it's interesting. So take us through like somebody who wants to work with you, right? Like take us through like what do people come to you with? Like do they come to you with like I'm struggling with finances, I'm struggling in relationships, I'm struggling in my career, just so many things, and then you sort of say, okay, let's start. And how do you like start your thing? I don't know why we switched, but Mercury retrograde.
Right. Yeah, so it kind of depends on the situation. It depends on, so you can use magic for anything really. And
Okay.
I would say my number one passion is, as I've sort of already alluded to, working with Saturn. And
Hmm.
Saturn is really like, I'm struggling with like, okay, it's very foundational. It's
Okay.
sort of like if other magic isn't working, if your manifestation's not working, then there's some kind of like conflict in you. And Saturn helps us get back to like being human
Hmm.
and facing fear. Like if fear is something that's holding you back, or a lot of people just actually struggle with being human. Like a lot of people actually don't want to commit to the human experience. And so we're constantly trying to escape it. And Saturn helps us like ground into our bodies. But it's also dealing with time. There's something about the human, like being human is, I think, partially what defines us is how short our life is. And this like sense of we don't know when it's going to end
Right.
is so intrinsic in what it actually means to be a human. And so Saturn kind of brings us back to that. So I'm really passionate about Saturn. So a lot of the people that come to me, it's like, I have this thing that I just can't get out of this same cycle. It's like work with Saturn. Or, just like really kind of like stuck in the muck of yeah, like resisting things and not being able to manifest in general. But sometimes, yeah, but then sometimes it's like, I have a course on doing money magic
Right.
with that goes through actually all of the planets. So people who are wanting more money will take that, will come in for that. And then, Venus is like relationships. And so all the planets kind of connect. There's always a planet
Yeah.
for whatever it is that you're trying to solve.
Do
Yeah.
you work with what's going on in the sky at the same time? Do you look like what's in the transits when you're working with that, or you don't even need to? It doesn't even matter where the planets are, the houses that it's in. That's not it's not important in what you do anyway. Yeah.
That is how I've approached it for most of my time
Hmm.
is from the place of we don't need to worry about that because we're having a direct line to the planet. But more and more, I'm starting as I get more in tune with it. I do see how the astrology, you know, yeah, like as I just have more of a sense of it, and get more sort of just deeper connection, deeper relationship with the planets. I'm starting to realize that the astrology does
Yeah.
kind of play a bit of a role. But that doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that if there's a hard transit that I'm just gonna like lay on the ground and
Right.
just like struggle. I will still try to kind of
Right.
negotiate, like, oh, how can we make this fun or
So I'm
easier?
understanding. So Saturn, the way you work is more like what Saturn's archetype is and how we can kind of channel that in our life to make the changes, and not necessarily that Saturn right now is in, the first sign of the zodiac, Aries, and it's starting new things because that's on more of a global scale. You're working with what Saturn represents archetypically. I don't know if I'm saying the word right, archetypally or
Archetypically.
whatever, right, through the person. So if I said, okay, I want to work, all right, I'm going to work with Saturn. What does that mean? Like for a person who's watching is like, okay, I see what they're saying, but how do you work with Saturn? What do you do? How do you do that?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways. But mostly it's offerings. and ritual.
Okay.
So literally like
Ritual work.
creating a ritual and making offerings and asking for things and sort of that kind of thing. But then there's also calling the archetype forth within us. So
Hmm.
like invoking it into ourselves and becoming that archetype or embodying it. And uh, I think a combination of those two is really, really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's what you're doing. You would be calling in that energy, which is what we do when we are praying. Basically, that's what we do when we're wishing, right? We're calling in an energy outside of us. And a lot of people work with gods and goddesses and the planet. And so working with the planets in that way is not really that big of a leap if you think about it. And
Exactly.
yeah, and I know a couple of readers who are very connected to certain planets and have like a relationship. Like it's like a planet is its own spiritual being, just like the Earth is its own spiritual being. So I see how that you're working with it. So when we walk with the planets, how do we start? For like the lay person, like what would you say if we want to walk with the
So,
planets?
yeah, I mean, I would recommend just even just like lighting an incense,
Okay.
and sort of just saying a little. So probably the easiest thing, honestly,
Mhm.
is to look up on Google
Yeah.
Orphic hymn to insert planet name.
Right.
So Orphic hymn to Saturn, you know, light an incense, read that poem out loud or in
Mhm.
your head, and
Mhm.
then just sort of um start a conversation,
Yeah.
and this is where it is helpful to do the offerings and ritual and kind of treat it as other, right?
Mhm.
Like I'm calling in an energy or an archetype or a god or a deity, however you want to think of it, and relate to it as other, and you can just speak directly to the planet. Um, or alternatively, and this works just as well and maybe more approachable for some people, to just start kind of taking on the characteristics of that planet.
Mhm.
So, okay, Mercury is kind of queer and playful and childlike and, would wear bright colors and kind of
Mhm.
put themselves out there and be silly and talkative and chatty, and so wear orange associated with the color
Yeah.
orange, so maybe wear orange and eat oranges
Yeah.
and play a game with some kids, read Dr. Seuss, and that can also start to kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, light the fire of connection with that archetype.
And what's so interesting now that as I'm learning more about astrology, we are doing that already in our each of our individual lives unknowingly, right? Like like with me being at my Gemini, and I also have Mercury in Gemini, right? So I have a radio show. You know what I mean? Like I'm having conversations all the time. Like that wasn't a choice that I said, oh, because I'm a Gemini, I'm going to do this. It was just something that I was called to do, which is very much Gemini, right? And then with my Leo, I'm an artist, I'm creative, I have a lot of passion about art, and that just sort of flew through me. And that's where I'm my happiest, when I'm creating. So we're already living out these archetypes in our own lives. So what you're offering people, it sounds like, is now we can consciously think about, oh, who am I connecting with right now? What do I want to bring forward? And I was listening to somebody talking about that sometimes when we have a lack of a certain planet in our chart, our natal chart, we that's what the energy of that is what we need to bring into our life, because it's in lack. What do you think about that?
Yes, 100%. And I was just wanting to say, and that's exactly where I was going to go with this when you said we're already living these archetypes, is that we often have, so we already contain all of the
Right.
archetypes. Um, but some of them we have imbalances
Yes.
with. So we might be like really on the masculine side, but then we're sort of struggle maybe with the feminine, which means, and I can relate to this because this is me in a nutshell. It's like I struggle to relax, I struggle to let down. It's hard for me to chill the F out,
Yeah.
but I also have a hard time receiving.
Mhm.
And there's just a lot that comes with that. And so, but there's different, so we can kind of have tendencies to really lean into certain archetypes and not others. So we might be really like impulsive and silly and conversational and mercurial. So then we might struggle with the more Jupiterian side. Maybe we have a hard time like saving money and
Mhm.
thinking long term and sort of like being more sort of grounded. And so you can almost diagnose yourself as to like, okay, which of these energies could I really benefit from calling more in?
Yeah.
And that's actually how I like to help people think about like which planets to work with.
Mhm.
Because a lot of people will be like, I'm writing a book, I want to work with Mercury. And then it's like, well, okay, but is that real? Like, and that might be the right match, but it
Right.
might be that actually Venus would be a better match for you, or the sun. If you
Mhm.
like, people when they're starting a business, they're like, I want to work with Jupiter because Jupiter is like the,
Yeah.
business, building a
Right.
business. But if you have visibility problems,
Right.
then the sun, you got to work with the sun because you got to be seen. You got to go out and be seen.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I never thought about it like that, but that's really, really interesting. And that's part of the reason that I'm even more interested in learning more about this, because there's also each card in each planet has an association with the tarot deck. And I don't know what those are yet, but that's going to even help me get even deeper into learning about the tarot and what the archetype is behind it and what that all means, which is really, really fascinating. I like that. So now let's talk about what shadow alchemy is. So is the shadow working with the lower octave of the planet energy? Is that how that plays out? Like, what is it?
So I don't, with the shadow work, it's more, it can be related to the planets, but I actually kind of think of it separately
Okay.
because it's less of like a magical art and more of
Mhm.
a, I think, psychological
Okay.
art of, um, but it is complementary in that the magic that we're doing is we're trying to create something new,
Right.
right? We're trying to manifest. We're
Right.
creating new identities, new beliefs, new ways of being in the world to get what we want ultimately.
Yeah.
And the shadow work side, the shadow alchemy is like, I think of it as dissolving the old sort of beliefs and identities that we want to let go of.
Okay.
So it's the work of like letting go of the belief of ourselves as being limited in certain ways, or yeah, that's probably the easiest way to say it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, then yeah, give us some examples of what like a shadow would look like in your life, like, or how it would show up for people.
Yeah, so basically what it is it's the parts of ourselves that we're ashamed of
Mm.
and that we like hide
Okay.
even from ourselves.
Right.
So it's considered, it's a psychological term for like, we all have an unconscious part of our mind.
Yeah.
Most of it is unconscious to us. And so it's the part that we're like, no, I'm not that. That doesn't exist. Like
Yeah.
that's not me.
Right.
So all the parts that we kind of just like we want to hide in the closet and pretend they don't exist.
Yeah.
And doing shadow work is about, and there's also a golden shadow. So it can be like negative qualities,
Right.
whatever that
Whatever
means.
that
Or
means.
it could
Right.
also be like positive qualities, like I am a deeply caring person. No, that's not me. I'm not caring. Don't tell anybody. Like
Yeah.
that we actually hide from ourselves too. And so it's the parts of us that we don't want to kind of own, really.
Right. Right. And we need to own those parts of us, because if we're asking to grow and we're asking to manifest something, right, we have to be fully aware of where our limitations are. Because I imagine, and I do this with the people when we're making these postcards, that's the fun part, right? But then there's the part before and the questions, and let's get deeper. And why do you want something in your life? You could say, oh, I want to be happy. Well, yeah, everybody wants to be happy, but why? What makes you happy? So we have to find that out. So I imagine that the shadow could be it could be blocking you from whatever it is that you are trying to manifest. So you have to be aware of what your shadow is.
Exactly. Like if you identify as broke,
Right.
like if you believe that you are a broke
Right.
person, you will never be able to make money, or
Yeah.
you'll be able to make money and then
You
you'll
won't,
spend it all
right, you won't
immediately.
have it. You'll never be able to hold on to it. That's why so many lotto winners go back and they lose all their money because they're not in that
Yeah.
energy of that wealth energy. They're still in the energy of broke. So the money's temporary, which is fascinating. Do you think that, because I find this just talking to people, that the biggest blocker for most people is they don't think that they deserve it. They think there's something inherently wrong with them, maybe from, something they heard from childhood or their environment, whatever. But there's a deep seated wound of I don't deserve this.
Yeah, worthiness. That is definitely one of the main things. It's like, yeah, I don't yeah, I think that, and also like I'm uniquely broken, or I'm uniquely
Mm.
like yeah, like either I'm uniquely unworthy,
Oh, I like
or
that's interesting.
yeah, yeah, or like I'm uniquely unable. Um
Mm. Now
those
that's
are
really interesting what you just said, because I just got like a little hit. It's like you're almost proud of that victimhood because that makes you special in a way, but not in a healthy way, in an unhealthy way, right?
mhm,
Yeah, that
100%.
that's really, and I know people like that. Like I just know people like that. We all know people like that, right? Like, oh no, you just don't understand. You just couldn't possibly understand. Well, I mean, I might not understand exactly what you're going through, but I can empathize, I can sympathize, and everybody's going through something. We all have our challenges. But yeah, I'm unique.
Right, and there's a shadow in that. There's like a shadowy part of us that wants to be special and thinks like, "Oh, I'm special because of this." And that most people would never admit that or acknowledge that or
Oh,
even be able to see it in themselves, but it's very much there. It's like we all want to be special. There's nothing wrong with wanting
right.
to be special.
Of
I think,
course.
yeah, yeah, and this is where the shadow work gets really interesting because we have to kind of stop judging ourselves and just accept that we're flawed, and
Right. Right.
it's not the end of the world.
Right. Right. No, I love that. I want to talk more about that, but I'm looking at the clock right now. So let us take our commercial break here. And then I want to delve more into the shadow alchemy, because that's important, I think. All right, guys, stay tuned and we will be back in just a couple of minutes.
Om Times TV, a division of Om Times Media and Broadcasting.
Do you have a dream that feels just out of reach? What if you could send a message to the universe and watch it come true? Hi, I'm Melissa Caprio, creator of the Postcards to the Universe project. For years, people from all over the world have sent me their dreams on a simple postcard, and I've seen incredible things happen. Postcards to the Universe, harness the universe's power and manifest your dreams, gives you the tools to create a life you love. Learn how to turn your biggest desires into a clear, powerful message the universe can hear. It's time to stop waiting and start creating. Discover your power to bring your dreams to life. This isn't just a book, it's an experience. Discover your purpose, unlock your potential, and manifest your wildest dreams. Find Postcards to the Universe by me, Melissa Caprio, wherever books are sold. Get your copy today. Start writing your story, one postcard at a time.
Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back. So I'm talking with Lucy Baldwin, and we're talking about planetary magic, shadow alchemy, and building relationships with the planetary archetypes. So we were talking about the shadow alchemy, and you had a really good point before the break about how there's a specialness in maybe feeling like a victim. Let's just use victim because it's a general way, however you've been victimized. And by learning what the shadow is in that, and what is it? What would you call it? Healing the shadow? Just acknowledging? I don't really know. Is it because I don't know, do you get rid of it? Is it ever something that you just get rid of? Or is it more like you go, oh, I'm doing that thing that I do again, kind of.
Yeah, I think it's about like sort of like you said, acknowledging
Yeah.
and just kind of I think the way to heal it is to just own and kind of claim and
Mhm.
learn how to not judge ourselves, not shame ourselves, and
Yeah.
just kind of like let ourselves every day get a little bit more, become more and more of who we are, I think.
Yeah.
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 And because when things are in the shadow,
Mhm.
they actually have way more power over us.
Yeah.
And this is where a lot of people, it's like, because we all have kind of darker sides that
Yeah.
definitely reside in the shadow. And, humans are capable of crazy stuff, right?
Oh,
And we
yeah.
like to think like, oh no, I'm different. I'm uniquely good or whatever.
Yeah.
And that is we all have certain patterns and habits and ways, like anger and
Mhm.
manipulation and these sort of like traits that can be, I don't know, toxic, let's say,
Yeah.
that's what we call them, I guess. But when we don't acknowledge them, then they actually have way more ability to kind of just come out of us
Oh, yeah.
without us knowing. But if we can sort of see like, oh, I was being manipulative,
Yeah.
then we can have more say. Like we can actually have more power to sort of say, oh, I'm being manipulative right now. Okay, I'm going to stop doing that. It's hard to
Mhm.
we don't even get to have a say when we don't see what's happening. It becomes compulsive.
Yeah. And the shadow wants to come out. I think that's why it comes out a lot of times in big ways. I mean, if you're a famous person, many times it comes out for the world to see where, you're get pulled over because you drank too much and you get a DUI and racial slurs come out of your mouth, right? And that you wouldn't know that about that person, but there is some shadow that it wants to come out. I think the shadow needs and wants to come out and come into the light so we can deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah. And some people like want to be secretly shadowy desires to like be
Yeah.
punished, or to
Yeah.
get in trouble or to be
Oh,
caught
right.
in their wrongness.
Oh, okay, good. Let's go back to that because that is in your bio because you work with, I mean, look it up. You call it existential kink and ritual. So I imagine that has to do with sex and people who maybe feel shame about some of their sexual desires, and you help people work through that. Is that what that is?
So it's actually kind of
Okay.
it's actually like it's actually referring to, well, it's a practice where you
Okay.
essentially practice getting off on things that you don't like in your life.
Oh,
So
that's interesting. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Tell
Yeah.
me more
So
about this. This is new for me. I love
yeah.
learning new things. Okay.
So this is a really cool practice. And I mentioned also, like I did coach training certification. I taught that for years. And
Okay.
it was in this style, this existential kink style. So the
Okay.
idea of existential kink is that we all have shadowy desires,
Sure.
and that the things that are in our life, the situations in our life, whether we like them or not, we created them
Hmm.
um, because of our shadowy desires. And so,
Okay.
again, going back to the example of brokenness, because it's an easy example and we've been
Yeah.
talking about it, it's like if you're broke, there's a part of you that chose that, or that is creating that, that is getting off on it. And you can access that part, and you can actually get off on it. You can feel, it doesn't have to be like a sexual getting off. It can
Right.
be, it doesn't have to be erotic. It can be, for me, it's like laughing usually, or just feeling tingly, or just feeling the sensation of
I understand.
feeling what that part of us is. Yeah, and
Yeah.
then that can shift the pattern. It can actually release it. So,
Mhm.
this has worked for me, and I've seen it with thousands of people actually.
Yeah,
That
I get it. So it's like, what are you getting out of living that broke story? Like you're getting something out of it, right? Because if you're saying that you don't want to be broke, but you're just broke and you're always broke, what are you getting out of it? Or, why are you getting off on being broke? Right. And it might not
yeah,
actually be like sexual. Okay. That is
yeah,
really, really fascinating. That is a fascinating way to work with people because I imagine that makes people really think about like, what is this that I've been ashamed of, or I'm carrying, or, why isn't this happening? Maybe relationships, like, why are you having such a hard time finding the relationship that you say you want? I'm talking about romantic partnerships here, right? So many people have a story that, oh, I can't find anybody. And I'm always like, you can't? Why are you saying that? Like, what are you getting out of being that single person who wants to have a partner and has a desire but can't find anybody?
exactly, exactly. And it's not even necessarily like that you'll consciously figure out why, because it's
Mhm.
like kinkiness is weird. Like people get off on weird stuff,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the trick is to just have approval for it. To just
Okay.
it's really hard to find like like physical pleasure in something if you don't approve of it. So you have to kind of like just be like, all right, this is what I'm doing. Because usually when we have things like that, it's like we get so frustrated and mad at ourselves, that we're
Mhm.
in this situation. And so the idea is we have to kind of drop the shame and the judgment. And then we're not like telling ourselves we like it, we're feeling it in our body. It's a practice of like being in our bodies and feeling
Mhm.
like, oh, but when I think about it, it's like I feel this flutter in my chest, or and then
Mhm.
just going in that way, because we can't really convince ourselves that we like things that we don't like.
Right.
And that leads to bypass. But if we're doing it in the body, it's like, but I can feel how much I'm enjoying this, and it's
Right.
weird.
Right. So we'll use broke for example. So if you're working through the broke and you're getting off on being broke, right? Like, would it be like, what is the payoff? Like, I get to be broke. So that means that I can always say, no, I can't do this because I don't have the money to do it and people won't bother you. Could that be like an example of what a feeling of being broke would be? I'm trying, because
Yeah.
what I'm trying to do is for my brain to put the association together so that the people watching us are like, oh, I get what she means.
Yeah. So that's actually more, I would call that like an inquiry process.
Okay.
The existential kink is like, okay, so the idea is you relax your body first. That's
Okay.
kind of the first step. And then you think about and I actually usually have people like literally I guide if I'm guiding someone, but it's meant to be like a self practice, like have
Right.
them really feel into their body. Like, what does it
Okay.
feel like when you breathe and your chest is rising and falling? What does your butt
Okay.
feel like where you're sitting? And so
Okay.
you're focusing on the sensations in your body, but then you think about the situation.
Okay.
You imagine your bank account is, what it looks, how empty it is. You imagine not being able to buy stuff. You feel and you think about that, and it
Okay.
elicits these sort of like physical sensations in your body. And
Okay.
then you start telling yourself, I'm okay, like enjoying this. You kind of give yourself permission to,
Mm.
I give myself permission to feel how much I actually love being broke. And you just kind of like see what
Without
happens.
asking why. Just you're right here,
Right.
you're just in the feeling. You're giving
Yeah.
yourself permission for the feeling, not asking the why you love that, if that's what you're working on.
Right, because we don't have to really know why, and we can't really because it's somewhere buried in our unconscious, right? It's like,
Right.
why? Because when you were a kid, something happened and you saw like
Yeah.
a rich person get hit by a car and you thought, oh
Right.
my gosh, I better not be like, it's just
Right.
impossible to really untangle that, And so we don't actually have to because we can just feel it in the body and move it in the body, and then it discharges it.
Right. And then so that's what happens, and it discharges it. And that's when the shift internally happens, and that's when you remove that blockage of broke if you're working on manifesting wealth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh,
And
that's
or
really
it will at
interesting.
least like open the door to, oh geez, wow, there's a lot of things I could do to get out of this situation that I didn't even think about before. And this literally, I went through this myself. So I actually experienced all of this. Like this happened in my
Yeah.
life in a major way. So I know that it worked for me. I've seen it work for so many people. Yeah. But
Yeah.
it wasn't like I just did that process and then it was done and then I was rich. This is where like the magic came in and it all kind of worked together.
Yeah. So you work on the shadow of whatever the blockage is, as you're also working with the planetary archetypes to bring in whatever you're calling in for yourself, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I think I'm finally, it's like the dots are now connecting for me about how you work. So that means that people are watching, they'll understand it. It's a different way you work with the planets. What do most people, if you don't mind sharing, without revealing obviously anything personal, what would have been some people's experiences after working with you? Or like, do most people come about money and relationships? Those are the two high ones?
I mean, that's what a lot of people are working on in their life.
Yeah.
But I do find that a lot of people who are actually working on their relationship with themselves, which I think is kind of what we're all
Very
doing on
important.
some level anyway.
Yeah.
But I notice that people who come into my sphere tend to already kind of be on a spiritual path. And a
Yeah.
lot of times it's people who've tried more traditional, like attraction methods and
Mhm.
manifestation methods. And they're like, why isn't this working?
Yeah.
And they discover this kind of like shadow alchemy side. And they're like, oh, this is interesting. And so this is it's kind of a two-pronged approach of like shedding the old and then calling in the new, with these two very different, honestly, they're very different modalities, the magic and the
Yeah.
shadow alchemy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would think that they were. So you work with clients one-on-one. I'm assuming it's private, especially with the shadow alchemy. It sounds like that would be very private work that you would do.
So I actually haven't worked with any one-on-one clients in
You do all these in groups?
a while. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And so I used to do a lot of one-on-one coaching.
Mhm.
But I really love groups. I have 5 kids, and I think it's because I just
God
love
bless
the
you.
group dynamic,
You must. I have no kids. I spend a lot of time with my sister's 2 kids, and I leave there and I'm exhausted. Yeah, I don't know how you do 5 kids. So people do the shadow work in groups. That is really interesting to me. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's really helpful for people to be seen in it helps because we hold this idea of radical approval in all of the communities. And so the people
Yeah.
that come into my field I've noticed that when you hold people to a standard, they rise to that standard. So
Yeah, it's true.
it's just the expectation of like,
Mhm.
you are going to approve of and love whatever comes out of this person's mouth. And people do that with each other. And it's so healing because you see somebody else owning their shit, and then everybody else is like just totally accepting of them and unfazed by it.
Yeah.
And that is really healing. It's like almost like group EK.
Yeah,
Existential Kink. Yeah.
yeah, that does sound like it would be really, really healing. And I think you're right. I think when we hold ourselves and other people to we have a higher expectation of them than they maybe have of themselves. They want to meet that. You want to meet that, right? That's why, trying, you would know as a parent of 5, you never want to berate your children and put them down because to try to bully them to be a certain way, because it has the opposite effect, right? You want them to see themselves the highest that they can be. So yeah, so it makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah. 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 Like, I know you can do this.
Yeah.
And then they
Right.
do. Yeah.
And then they do. Right. Now with people that are wanting, do you have like separate groups for people who just want to do the planetary archetype work, and then you have like the shadow group, or do you take your groups through the whole process and it's like one kind of a I don't want to say therapy because it's not therapy, it's coaching, like a coaching situation?
So I have kind of an ongoing community for the
Okay.
existential kink work.
Okay.
And that actually has it does have a separate podcast, and I hold that community with like a few other people.
Mhm.
And then I have courses, and I do
Okay.
courses, and the courses are magic. They're usually like based around a planet, and I do incorporate a lot of shadow work into that. So you're getting
Okay.
both sides.
Okay. Right. So, and are they pre-recorded? You have some pre-recorded courses, right? Like if somebody wants to work, like somebody's working on money, you have a course like with, you can work with Venus. Who do you work with money? Venus?
Well, the current course I have for money goes through all the planets.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but exactly. Yeah. You can like get that course at any time, and it'll take you through all the lessons. But I also run like live rounds where I'll do like calls, and it'll be more of a group cohort experience.
Yeah. Have you seen some major shifts in some of your clients who you've worked with, like come in and before and then after they work with you and they really get the work, like big shifts happen in their life?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And a lot of people end up taking multiple courses because, especially with the planetary magic, but that's why I set up this community that's ongoing, and it's only $29 a month. So people can just kind of like stay connected to the community, but like they've already kind of been through some of the courses. So they've had the big transformations, but they want to stay kind of in the community and in the work. So yes, but major moves. And I actually just closed out a course today, and we had our last call, and it was just like such a beautiful call of people just being like, and I could, some of these people, it's like, wow, you look different just even on the screen.
Wow.
But that was a Saturn program, and Saturn really has that effect on people. Like if you're lacking that sort of like structure and Saturnian sanity in your life, and you work with Saturn, it's really life-changing. Yeah.
That's interesting. I'm going to think about Saturn in a whole new way.
I know.
After talking with you. So for people who want to get their toe wet a little bit, like what would you recommend that people start doing on, maybe a daily basis or weekly basis to kind of start feeling like they're connecting?
I would definitely recommend setting up like a little altar. And it can just be general, like any sort of surface. And then you just want to keep it clean, and maybe put like something pretty on it. Maybe like a crystal or a flower or a plant, or just even sometimes I'll put like a bowl of water
Yeah.
or just even incense. It could be really simple, but just a small surface, as big as you want, actually.
Yeah.
Um, and then if it's a daily thing, I would say like light an incense or light a candle and just sort of connect with. So each planet is associated with a day of the week.
Yeah.
So you could connect with the planet of that day and
Right.
notice like which ones feel really good, and or you can just connect, you could just work with all of them. But that's what I would start doing, is just start sort of like making a little prayer to that planet each day.
Yeah.
Or if you wanted to do one, you could just like make a little prayer to the sun every day. Maybe like put something yellow on the altar, and yeah, that's kind of, I think that's what I would recommend, because obviously I teach these courses on planetary
Yes.
magic, and so you can go really deep into these courses, but you don't need me. You can just connect with these archetypes. Are available to all of us. We all
Right.
have access to them. We all have all of these planets in our chart, and so you can absolutely just build that relationship with yourself. That's what I did with Saturn initially, because there was nobody out there teaching courses about Saturn. There was almost no
Right.
information on the internet about Saturn. It was a lot harder to do research back then too. It was before
Yeah. Right.
AI. So I built this relationship over years, but just totally on my own. And so anybody can do that at any time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, I change usually. I have an altar, but I usually do it by season. That's usually when I work with the altars. But if you're working with the planets and that's where you want to connect, that's an easy way. You could have a little shelf. I mean, you don't even need like a table. You just have a little tiny shelf, and that's your sacred altar. Anything you make sacred and where you set your intention is really where the magic, I think, really happens, right? In the rituals, you're setting this intention. So that's very, very powerful. So is there any stories that you could share, like any real world transformation stories with the planetary magic that you've been witness to?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's hard because I feel like I'm not good at telling it as like because when I hear story, I'm like, oh, like a dramatic story. So I actually wrote a book
Okay.
about my journey with kind of my story with Saturn that I haven't yet published.
Oh,
I
okay.
wrote this book
I was
like
gonna say, because you hold it up, but you haven't published it yet. Okay.
I wrote it like 3 years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
there's always, yeah, I just haven't published it yet, but, so that will come out someday. But so because I've written a book, I have these standards for telling stories, but I could just say, I've seen people make large quantities of money. Somebody was able to build a house without getting a mortgage. I've seen people end relationships that were really hard to get out of, find love and get married and have like miraculous relationships. Like I've seen it all, I guess is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. But a lot of times what I really see is people coming to like, this sounds so corny, but like love themselves.
No, it
Um,
doesn't sound corny. I don't
well,
think
I
that's
think it
corny.
sounds corny.
Well, because if you don't have that relationship to yourself first, then everything else we're talking about, trying to get anything else, it's just you're just wasting your time, because you have to love yourself first before you can have all those other things that you're asking for. So it's the most important relationship, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've gotten quite a few emails of people saying like, "Oh my god, this literally saved my life," or "This
Yeah.
completely changed my life," or things like that. And it's not me, obviously. It's the
Yeah.
planet. And that's where I love teaching magic, because I the planets do 80% of the work, right?
Right.
I just like help
You're
I just
the
help people.
connector. You're connecting.
Exactly. Exactly. I help people connect with the planet, and then the planets make the magic happens, and then I
Right.
get to just be like, "Wow, see, it works so well."
See, it works so good.
Yeah.
That's great. I love that. So tell people, if they want to work with you, where the best place to find you. You have a podcast, right? You have your own podcast?
Yeah, so I have a podcast. So in the magic department, I have a
Yeah.
podcast called The 7, Living with the
Okay.
Planets. And that's a ton about planetary magic. And I actually have an episode
Okay.
coming out tomorrow about how to know which planet to work with.
Okay, great.
Then I have a podcast called Penetrate Radio. This is the podcast about existential kink. So that's a totally different vibe. And they're both, they're both really awesome. So the Penetrate Radio one is getting really into the shadow work and the EK side of things.
Okay. And people can find that on all the podcasting platforms, like
Mhm.
on Apple, Google Play, Spotify, wherever they are. Okay. And now if people want to take your courses, what's the best way for them to sign up with you?
So I have a website, lucybaldwin.me.
Mhm.
I'm also on Instagram, lucy.baldwin.author. So
Oh,
everything
okay.
is
So
available
then,
on.
so I have you as, why do I have you as remelinacoaching.com? Is that
That
an
is
old
that
one?
is also my website.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Okay. So I'll make sure in the description I put both so people can find it. 'Cause I'm like, wait, I know I don't have that one. Okay. And so, and then if some of your courses are pre-recorded, and then you'll always let people know if you're going to do another live kind of group, you're going to take people through a live group.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the thing that you shared at the beginning of the call. Like, if you
Mm.
believe what was it? If you believe in magic?
Yeah. When you believe in magic, magical things happen. Yeah.
I feel
When you
like that's
believe.
exactly right. Yeah.
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 Yeah. That is it. I mean, you have to believe in it. You can't say, oh, I want to create this and I want this, or I do, spell casting. You can't do any spell casting, but then not believe in magic because, well, you're just wasting your time. I mean, what are you doing? You have to
Yeah.
believe it, right? That's part of it. Part of it is believing it. Well, we have like less than a minute left. Is there anything that you want to leave anybody with before we wrap up?
I mean, I would just say trust your intuition with all of this magic stuff. You're not going to do it wrong. It is really about belief and intention. So if your intentions are good, it's all going to be okay. Trust
Perfect.
yeah.
Love it. All right. Well, it was such a pleasure, Lucy. Thank you so much. And
Thank
thanks
you.
everybody listening to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa, creating the life you crave. And I'm wishing everyone a wonderful week filled with joy, abundance, and love. Peace.